he formed the junta of militant organizations that then merged with two other organizations to form the Afghan People's Socialist Party. So he is the chairman, and this movement is alive and thriving because of him and his leadership. I just really want to salute this incredible revolutionary, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and check out his book Vanguard, The Advanced Attachment of the Afghan Revolution, which is the report to the 7th Congress. It really sums up the political climate and also the history of the party, sums up the regional strategy that we are implementing, so to really expand the movement in all of the different regions of the US and abroad, and just the mandates, including the mandate for APSC and USM to build on the continent of Africa, because there's a lot of white people in Africa, and we want to show them the stance to take of, real solidarity with African liberation. So many, people just, were born into living as, parasites on the rest of the world, myself included, and all white people. And many of us don't like that and want to take the right stand. So salute Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and I want to salute Deputy Chair Onezene Yeshitela. And in fact, you can see on page 8 of your Burning Spear newspaper that you can get at burningspearmarketplace.com. The best newspaper there is. You can see a photo of the entire National Central Committee of the Afghan People's Socialist Party. So here we are. There we are. Now it's on camera. And so Chairman right front center, and then Onezene Yeshitela leads all of the economic work of the Uhuru movement, which is huge. In order to have a liberated people, there needs to be a liberated economy. You need to be able to feed, clothe, and house themselves. And so her work is no small thing. She's the architect of the Black Power Blueprint, building incredible economic programs in St. Louis and elsewhere. So I really want to salute her. We'll be talking more about those economic programs shortly. And also salute Akile Anai, pictured here. She is the Director of Agitation and Propaganda for the Afghan People's Socialist Party, which includes being the Editor-in-Chief of the Burning Spear newspaper. So, excuse me. One of the, to have a liberation movement, you also need to have your own news source and speak directly to the people about what's going on. You can't rely on the oppressor to explain the world how it really is and what needs to happen in order to change it, right? Right. So, Burning Spear newspaper is no small thing. Neither are the other media programs of the Uhuru movement. So, salute Akile Anai. And also want to salute Penny Hess, who wrote Overturning the Culture of Violence and is the chairwoman of the Afghan People's Solidarity Committee. So the Afghan People's Socialist Party formed the Afghan People's Solidarity Committee, a cadre organization of white people under the party's leadership. And then under APSC is USM, the mass organization of white people in solidarity with Black Power and organizing for reparations. So this is a program from USM under leadership of APSC. Casey Mackey, our guest, is a member of both. And all of that is under the Afghan People's Socialist Party. So this book, Overturning the Culture of Violence, I highly recommend. Casey Mackey once explained this book as it being a true history of white people. It says overturning the culture of violence. It goes into how white society is a culture of violence founded and built upon rape and genocide and oppression that continues up until today, and how we can overturn that, especially through reparations. So check out this book, also at Burning Spear Marketplace. And then lastly, but not leastly, I want to salute our national chair, Jesse Nevel, who is often co-hosting this show with me. He couldn't tonight, but I just really want to give a big salute to him and all the leadership he provides to USM. He is also a member of the Afghan People's Solidarity Committee, sitting on the National Central Committee of the Afghan People's Solidarity Committee. I know that's a lot of words there, but they are very important. So salute him, and salute our guest, Casey Mackey. So let me see here. I just want to give a shout out to everyone who's tuning in on Facebook, and salute our incredible moderator, Virginia, Leah Fifield says Uhuru from Minneapolis. And here I'll post the links into YouTube for everyone for Burning Spear Marketplace. And it's open throughout this program for you to ask a question, leave a comment, etc. And I welcome you to do so, either commenting, That's odd. Our chat on YouTube seems to be a little funky. I'll just refresh this, and I'll post the links momentarily. It said the chat was ended. So, alright, the video's up. Let's try this again. There we are. Okay, so now everyone on YouTube has a link to get your books, to get your Burning Spear newspaper. What I was about to say is that you can leave a comment or question on YouTube, on Facebook, and I will read it. You can also call in and make your question or comment via actual voice by calling 727-537-9171. And I will post that in the comments as well on YouTube, and Virginia has Facebook. Let me see here. There we are, and Renee tuning in from Philadelphia, where she works at the Uhuru Furniture Store that is having a sale right now. I just saw it's 15% off. So you can put your tax return money towards reparations and get some incredible furniture as well. Oh, and so we're reading on page 4. I think that I made a mistake and said page 7. So let me just fix that there. Virginia, if you can catch that as well. For anyone who has their Burning Spear newspaper, page 4. So Leah Fifield tuning in, Renee, and we have Tama Goldbergadini from St. Pete. Uhuru Tama, we very much love you. Nasir Al-Amin tuning in from Kuwait. Uhuru, wonderful. Let me see here. And there's other people as well who have not commented, so I don't know who they are, so I can't shout them out, but, well, I can. So
I saw that Mads was on.
Oh, Uhuru Mads, wonderful. Mads is the leading USM organizer in Portland, Oregon, and is also the Western Regional Chair for USM. So Uhuru Mads, excellent. All right, so I'm going to get started. I know, Casey, you're not able to read along with us, but I look forward to all of your comments on our article. And is there anything you would like to say, Casey, before we start reading?
No, I'm excited to read the article.
Uhuru, awesome. All right, so let us dive in. And this newspaper is from the perspective of the Afghan working class. From the perspective of Afghan internationalism, which is the political theory of the Uhuru movement via Chairman Amalia Shatella. So let's dive into this analysis. Page 4, we cannot be fooled. Macron reforms the CFA to maintain French colonial domination in Africa. This is from the Kinshasa International column, African Internationalist Views on Global News. So by Louise Kinshasa, Secretary General of the African Socialist International. The CFA franc, originally franc of the French colonies in Africa, recently franc of the Financial Community of Africa, or colloquially franc. So the CFA franc is the name of two currencies, the West African CFA franc, used in 8 West African countries, and the Central African CFA franc, used in 6 Central African countries. On December 21st, 2019, in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, Alassane Ouattara, the French puppet president of Côte d'Ivoire, and Emmanuel Macron, the president of France, signed documents to announce the end of the CFA franc that French imperialism has imposed on us, African people, since 1945. So just to be clear, this is Louisa Kinshasa is from the perspective of an Afghan person, an Afghan revolutionary. Macron told a lie to justify the reform of the CFA franc, saying, quote, "It was by hearing your youth that I wanted to initiate this reform. The CFA franc crystallizes many criticisms and many debates on France and Africa. I have heard your critics. I see your youth which criticizes us for continuing a relationship which it considers post-colonial. So let's break the moorings," end quote. So that was from Macron, the French president. Pro-colonialism Ouattara exposed his platitude by saying, quote, "This historic decision was taken with complete sovereignty. It takes into account our desire to build our future in a responsible manner," end quote. Has the French colonial monetary domination of the currency known as the CFA franc, used in 15 countries, come to an end because of the reform conceded by French President Emmanuel Macron in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire? According to French news outlets, the currency will be renamed the ECO next year, and French officials will no longer be represented on its governing bodies. In addition, a requirement that the ECO's member states keep half their foreign reserves in France will be rescinded. What has led Macron to accept to carry out this reform of the CFA franc is the growing anti-colonial movement in all parts of Africa's 14 countries which use the CFA franc. The 75 years of France's imperialist control of the, quote, Franc Colonial Franc of Africa, FCFA, that was later changed to Franc de la Communauté Financière d'Afrique, to disguise its colonial character and function, was genocidal and bloody. It is an economic crime of the highest magnitude against humanity. It requires France to pay Afghan people, that requires France to repay Afghan people all value stolen from Africa because of this insane relationship. It is right that it has come under severe criticism from Afghan people throughout France's former 14 colonies, of which 8 are part of the West Africa Monetary Union, UMOA in its French acronym. It comprises Benin, Burkina Faso, Côte d'Ivoire, Guinea-Bissau, Mali, Niger, Senegal, and Togo, and they are managed from the Central Bank of West African States, which is BCEAO in its French acronym. The other 6 colonies, located in Central Africa, Gabon, Cameroon, Congo, Brazzaville, Chad, Central Africa Republic, and Equatorial Guinea, are organized through the Economic and Monetary Community of Central Africa, which is CEMAC in its French acronym. Their CFA franc is run by the Bank of Central African States, with a French acronym of BEAC. The CFA franc is also used in the Comoros Islands, located in the so-called Indian Ocean. And then we have a second title here, which is The Two Pillars of France Africa, the CFA franc and military bases. France Africa is the name used by Africans to highlight the neo-colonial relationship between France and their colonies in Africa. It is through the control of the CFA franc and the French military bases in Africa that France exerts control over its puppets and power. In a speech in Côte d'Ivoire, Macron said, quote, "I wanted to engage France in a historic and ambitious reform of the cooperation between the West African Economic and Monetary Union and our country. With the reform of the CFA franc, we are taking a big step to write a new page in our relationship with Africa," end quote. And it says, We know better. France is an imperialist country, which is why we are not expecting France to fundamentally change its relationship with its Afghan colonies, but rather make a cosmetic change to take the pressure off from the masses of angry Afghan people. Macron needs a reform to kill the rise of Macron needs a reform to kill the rise of revolutionary consciousness in Africa. He had no other option than to make a concession. The question is, will this be enough to derail the growing Afghan national movement to recapture our own Afghan resources and destiny? The FCFA and French military bases have been the most flagrant representation of French white power domination and humiliation of Africa. Half of the reserve currency of French colonies will no longer be deposited at the French treasury, but it is not yet clear where that money will be deposited. Cyril Ben-Simon in Le Monde newspaper indicates that in 2015 alone, Afghan countries transferred 19 billion euros to the French treasury. This reform presents that French authorities will no longer sit in the executive board of the institutions that preside over the FCFA in Africa. For the time being, the 6 Central African countries are not part of Macron's reform on the replacement of the CFA franc with the ECO. And then there's a second title, The Bloody History of the CFA franc used to maintain French colonial domination. We all know how France punished Sékou Touré for daring to say no to France's offer of neocolonialism, which will have made Guinea a part of this monetary French colonial pact. France stripped Guinea of every resource to force Guinea on its knees. Fortunately, Kwame Nkrumah led a solidarity movement with Guinea to stop France from succeeding. On January 13, 1962, the French government assassinated Sylvanus Olympio, the first president of Togo, who dared to create the Central Bank of Togo with the authority and mandate to print its own currency, despite venomous opposition from the French ruling class. The French swiftly used its Afghan soldiers, freshly returned from Algeria and Vietnam, where they'd been carrying out French counterinsurgency against the Algerian and Vietnamese national liberation struggles, to launch the first coup in neocolonial French Africa, just 1 year after the assassination of Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. Sylvanus Olympio took refuge in the U.S. Embassy, which collaborated with the French rulers to deliver him to the hands of the butchers of the Afghan neocolonial army, headed by Gnassingbé Eyadema, the father of the current president, Faure Gnassingbé, whose forces shot Sylvanus Olympio at close range several times in the head. On January 12, 1994, the French government, in collaboration with the International Monetary Fund, IMF, devalued the FCFA by 50% overnight, robbing the Afghan nation of untold wealth and throwing millions of Afghans into absolute poverty. We must also recall for our readers that Modibo Keïta, the president of Mali, who quit the FCFA to unite with Sékou Touré in Guinea and Kwame Nkrumah in Ghana, was also overthrown by another bunch of black soldiers at the service of French imperialism, led by Lieutenant Moussa Traoré in November 1968. Between the first coup in 1963 and the most recent 2010 coup that overthrew and humiliated Laurent Gbagbo, along with his wife Simone Gbagbo, French rulers have used military power to keep control over its Afghan colonies by overthrowing every single leader who dared to oppose the FCFA colonial pact. Some former French colonial countries discontinued the use of the FCFA straight away after their independence. For example, Algeria, Tunisia, Morocco, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia got their independence with the right to print and manage themselves their currencies and foreign currency reserves. We, talking about African people, can't be satisfied with small reforms. We want real change. We want Afghan unification and liberation under the leadership of the Afghan working class. France out of Africa, build to win, build an independent Afghan economy. Uhuru. So that's our article, and I want to give a shout out to Renee in response to the her furniture sale shout out says yes with 3 exclamation marks. Johan Bedingfield is tuning in from Clearwater, Florida, and says Uhuru. Terrence Bowers is tuning in from Springfield, Massachusetts. Uhuru. And we have on Facebook several people as well, who I'm not seeing right now. But shout out to all of you who are tuning in. Omar Kato says hello. I'm John Hill Jr. from New York. Let me see. And many others. So Uhuru, please put your comments either in the comment sections on Facebook and YouTube, or call 727-537-9171 to make your comment or question via voice-to-voice. And before I open it up to our guest tonight, Casey Mackey, I just want to really unite with this article by Louise Kinshasa. He really lays out, how France, really forcibly, with incredible violence, forced monetary control and other means of colonialism onto, the people of Africa in, various so-called countries that themselves were imposed on Africa by Europe, including France. This reform does not even carry over to all of those countries that France still has control over that are supposedly former colonies, but, that they only... It is ridiculous that, Macron is saying, oh, I've heard the criticisms of your youth, and so I'm going to be a good person and make this little reform for you, and now you supposedly have control of your own money, except, it's not really said, again, where that money will be deposited. It was required that half of it would be required to stay in France, and it's not clear where else that will go. This is, as Louise Kinshasa sums up, we see so many examples of this type of thing, including in the U.S., with these small reforms made in order to be pressure valves. There's, revolutionary movements and resistance, all over Africa in the countries laid out in this article. And, all over the U.S. and other places as well, everywhere that African people are, that other colonized people are. And it's due to that resistance that white power is having to, make these concessions, as Louise Kinshasa sums up. The Uhuru movement recognizes that while reforms aren't necessarily a bad thing, there needs to be reforms on a revolutionary trajectory. And so, with the goal of absolute liberation, not to make colonialism, I don't even want to say slightly more comfortable, because obviously African people are, as the chairman says, catching hell every single day. And so, this concession was made as a pressure valve, but African people are going to keep resisting until African people are free. And we have a role in that as white people, to make sure that, every single penny of stolen resources that we have access to is returned, to African people for their control over their own lives. And the Uhuru movement is creating, of course, the Black Power blueprint, also the Uhuru Wabanki, which is a freedom bank, starting small, an incipient bank, but with the goal of being, the bank for the Afghan nation at large. So right now it's going to be working just in terms of the organizations within the Uhuru movement, with the goal of, growing it to, a real, actual, to capacity for the Afghan nation. So with that said, I want to open it up to our guest, Casey Mackey. And we're here, Casey.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Uhuru, Jackson, thank you so much. I really appreciate your summation of the article. It's an honor to be a guest on the Reparations Study Group, and I want to join in the salute of our leadership, Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and Deputy Chair Ona Zane Yeshitela, and the entire African People's Socialist Party, and the Burning Spear, this incredible newspaper that it tells the voice of African people all over the world, in their own words. Before I met this movement, I barely paid attention to what was happening in the world.
Mm-hmm.
It's so easy for all of us to get caught up in our own lives, and as white people, having lived on the pedestal of imperialism for 600 years, are just really taught to see, think the whole world is about us, that we're like the protagonists in this individual story, when we've been isolated from humanity, and there's a whole world around us rising up to be free. And I appreciate this article by Secretary General Louise Kinshasa. It shows how, the white ruling class, this tiny minority of humanity, waging wars of plunder and terrorizing the majority of humanity, sees the writing on the wall, and are obviously, aware of the inevitable victory of oppressed people, and are doing whatever they can to stave off a full-blown revolution. But they're not going to be able to, because the African People's Socialist Party is winning and moving forward, and uniting African people as one people, and building a liberated African economy as a way to overturn all of the vicious things we heard in this article, on this study. I just think it's really important that we read and understand all the violence that's happening to African people all around the world, because once we see it, we have to make a choice about whether we will ignore it or transform our lives to do something about it. Whatever it takes, in whatever small way. So, yeah, I just unite with the article and really appreciate your summation, Jackson, and want to salute everybody tuning in tonight and sharing this and building these studies so that white people can build this historically required movement for white reparations to African people.
Uhuru, Casey, I really want to appreciate that. And yes, we need to build this movement. We need to make it so that white power has to contend with white people, and that it has to go through us, if it wants to attack African people. And we want there to be no more, horrible, coups and assassinations like of Patrice Lumumba, who was the first and only really democratically elected president of the Congo, and Belgium, France, and the U.S., and the neocolonialists of Congo all worked together to carry out that brutal assassination, where he was just beaten so badly. He was in a plane, and he was being beaten so badly that the pilot had to, say to the people beating him up, hey, you need to not beat him so hard because it's affecting the flight of the plane. We might crash the plane. So they were beating him up that hard. And then killed him, burned his body in acid, just horrific things. And they have, the U.S., France, other colonial powers, white power, has done that, to, numerous incredible African leaders and other revolutionary leaders around the world, including in the U.S. with the Black Power movement. And there are still African people in prison from the Black Power movement who need to be free. And, all African people, have the right to freedom. So I have a comment here. Okay, good. Before I go into our questions I prepared for you, Casey Mackey, we have a comment on Facebook from Nasir Al-Amin in Kuwait, who says, "My understanding is that only a select number of articles from the Burning Spear are online. Is it possible to make an online version as well for those that live abroad and want to read it?" And Nasir, I want to give you the email for the Burning Spear newspaper so that they can work with you in terms of how to get access to that in Kuwait. I know that there are other people living abroad who have worked with the Burning Spear in order to get access to the newspaper, whether a physical copy or I don't know about if any other kind of copy is done with those forces, but I just put the email in the Facebook chat, which is info@theburningspear.com. And Virginia Wilson says, "Yes, reforms on a revolutionary trajectory only, not reforms to make imperialism remain, Uhuru." So, Uhuru. So we have some questions I prepared, Comrade KC. One of them is, what should a white person do who wants to see an independent and liberated Africa? And I know we've addressed that a little bit, but I wanted to open that up, Uhuru.
Yeah, let me think about that. Join the Uhuru Solidarity Movement.
Yes.
No, but I'm serious. I mean, This is the only organization that is under the leadership of the African Liberation Movement. And I just think that once you really let that sink in, it makes sense why it should be part of our lives in some degree, you know? Some white people are going to devote their lives are going to read an article like this and say, you know what, I'm going to be full-time revolutionary. Join the African People's Solidarity Committee and live and breathe the revolution. Like, I could be an engineer, I could, take be a major in biomedical engineering, I could be an artist, a DJ, a painter, I could be a plumber, whatever. But always a revolutionary no matter what, organizing and, just join as a sustaining member, because that's what then allows the full-time revolutionaries to do what they do to the organization, to, the resources and solutions lie in the people. And, this is not something that is funded by the government or by corporations. It's led by the African working class, and so every resource is a struggle and a fight. And, white people need to turn over the resources, organize our friends to the same. So definitely sign up at uhurusolidarity.org and join as a sustaining member today.
Uhuru. And I just put the links in the YouTube chat. I know that Virginia will be putting the links in the Facebook chat. So I put a link for Join APSC at apscuhuru.org. That's the full-time, hardcore, full cadre, revolutionaries. And that's the organization of white people directly under leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. And then the Uhuru Solidarity Movement is the mass organization. We have 3 principles of unity. We work under the leadership of the African People's Socialist Party. We recognize African people have the right to lead their own struggle. And 3, we organize in the white community for reparations. And we're having a recruitment drive that we want you to be a part of. And I just want to be clear, to become a member, so I put links to become a member or donate, that's great too, at uhurusolidarity.org. To volunteer, email info@uhurusolidarity.org, and sign up to be a USM recruiter at uhurusolidarity.org/recruit. So what it means to be a member is that you pay dues, whether it's $5 a month, $100 a month, etc. Monthly sustaining member, means that you help sustain this movement, and we grow through that. And to be a member, you can also volunteer. So you can volunteer without being a member, which is awesome too. You can be a member and volunteer. You can also be a member, and that's just all you do. You just pay your dues, and that's it. And we support you and appreciate you. Be a card-carrying member of the Uhuru Solidarity Movement. So many of us are both member and volunteer. And if you would like to be, both a member and volunteer, you can help us with our USM recruitment drive. Again, at uhurusolidarity.org/recruit. We're having it March 9th through 15th. Help hand out flyers, knock on doors, come to our reparations potluck that we're having in numerous cities, etc. Open meetings, and anything else. A volunteer can help put up posters, make PSAs for radio stations, so many things. So we need you. If you unite with Reparations, this is a movement for you, and encourage you to be a part of it. Uhuru. Uhuru. So I'm going to go... Yes, Casey.
Oh, I was just agreeing.
Awesome. All right. So next, I have for our questions, how is what is happening in Africa similar to what is happening to Black people in the U.S.?
Yeah, I think that we've answered that a few times tonight in a certain way, but it's because, I unite with the African People's Socialist Party's position that Black people are part of one African nation that has been forcibly dispersed through slavery and colonialism, and it's their forced dispersal and imposed false identities that is part of what keeps imperialism intact and functioning. It functions off the oppression and disunity and division of African people. So that's why the party is engaged in the reversal of that process. It's dialectics. It's about overturning the reality that we have right now that we're confronted with through organization to make the world, turn it right side up, make it the opposite of what it is. It's capitalism, we want it socialism. It's oppressive, we want it free, So that's why I think, colonialism is universal. So what's happening to African people within the U.S. is domestic colonialism, and what's happening to African people outside the U.S. is colonialism. I think that it's very important that we see it that way, because then we see that the problem is not racism, but colonialism. And yet, the other day, Chairwoman Kenny of the African People's Solidarity Committee read, the theory of the African nation by Chairman Omali Yeshitela, and talked about why that mattered to white people. Because they're African, then what are we? They're colonizing Europeans. Sorry to say, but it's not to make us feel guilty or shameful, but it's just the truth.
It's just the truth.
So anyway, that's the answer.
Uhuru, appreciate that, Casey, and really want to unite with that. So often, we as white people get defensive when the truth is said about us. But we have to see it as it really is if we want things to be different, right? So, Uhuru. And then next, I wanted to ask you about what is the significance of the Black Power Blueprint, especially in the context of this article, Uhuru.
There's so much that can be said about that. Earlier today, I was interviewing a volunteer named Mr. Gary Brooks, who's an incredible volunteer for this project. He's an African man that lives right next to the Uhuru House and the marketplace and outdoor venue, and what will soon be a community garden named after him. And because he's been such a visionary in seeing this garden come to life and knowing about the plants that need to come and how to plant them and take care of them, and fruits that can be available for the community to come and pick and make it a beautiful destination. And I just think that that's really exciting. And he was just talking about the ways that it's fighting back against gentrification, because gentrification is when a city will deprive African community of resources and raise up the rent and make it nearly impossible to live, deny any kind of economic development, any job opportunities, any thriving community programs or cultural centers, all these things that we take for granted in the white community, like places where people can exercise, all these different things, depriving a community of that, putting in a criminalized drug economy, and pushing and raising the rent, pushing people out, but including through police brutality. Killing African people is part of gentrification. Yes. Gentrification is genocide. And so this project is about, putting political economic power in the hands of the Black community to push back against that. and it's bigger than St. Louis. It's part of an international strategy to build a liberated anti-colonial African economy that meets the needs of African people worldwide. So it's very, very significant, and people can get involved at blackpowerblueprint.org.
Uhuru. I'm going to put that in our comments there so people have access to that, definitely. And very excited to see the Black Power Blueprint in person this April 18th and 19th for the USM convention. Uhuru. I appreciate that, Casey. And just want to add, the Black Power Blueprint, I know, is a blueprint, for everywhere. And that while it's headquartered in, St. Louis, due to, the resistance of African people, during the Ferguson uprisings and how the Uhuru movement was there, and President Kalambai of the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement organized on the ground there, and made it possible for something like the Black Power Blueprint to, take place. That this is a blueprint for everywhere, and is, building an independent, liberated African economy. That, you have to have a liberated economy in order to have, the superstructure of a society. Any of the, anything else, you have to. Everything is built on the economy in terms of a society. So. This is the future, and we read this article about the economic oppression, economic imperialism in Africa, in certain places in Africa by France, but all of Africa is under this from white power at large, and Black Power Blueprint is the future, and that will be the liberated economy of liberated Africa. So we can contribute that. We can see it in person. If you're in St. Louis or from elsewhere and want to go to St. Louis, you can volunteer with the Black Power Blueprint. I put the link in there, blackpowerblueprint.org. In all sorts of ways. I'm sure there's all sorts of projects. Someone just commented, Uhuru and Ola from South Texas with a heart. Uhuru. Awesome, from YouTube. But yeah, whether painting a fence or helping with AV or helping with the garden, so many ways that we can be a part of that, and by paying reparations. So, and joining USM. So I know we're a little short on time. So our next two questions, I'm just going to ask them both, and then you can answer both in turn, KC. We have, what can you tell us about the One Africa, One Nation marketplace coming up in St. Louis? And also, what can you tell us about the party's mandate for APSC and USM to build in Azania and throughout Africa? Uhuru.
Uhuru. Well, in the words of Chicharo Masimba, who is the overall coordinator for the One Africa, One Nation marketplace, it's going to be on and popping.
Yes.
It's going to be on and popping for sure, because there's going to be African vendors selling amazing products, made by the community for the community. Butters, soaps, shampoos, oils, fresh food from farmers, just art, books. There's so many different things, and there's going to be a lineup of speakers and performers, and there's going to be health professionals giving free health services. So I went to the one that this movement has organized in Philly and has done for a long time, and seen how beautiful it is, just liberated territory where the resources are flowing within the community and staying to bring the power to the African community, and it's a really beautiful thing. So I'm really excited for that to come to St. Louis. It's coming together. I'll be over at Outreach in the North American community so that white people can come shop this African marketplace with our dollars to support Black-owned businesses. So that's what #BuyBlackPower is all about, is supporting these African-owned businesses that is part of the whole collective that goes towards the struggle for political self-determination as well as economic self-reliance. So, the political and economic are one. Omali Tavi.
Yes.
So I'm so excited for the marketplace. And also, I can't really speak to the building that occupied Azania. I know that it's critical that we build there. That's what I know, is that stated that we in occupied Azania because this is, Africa is the place where Africa was born. It is where Africa will die. It is where it is a place where capitalism was born, and it is a place where capitalism will die. And it's extremely important that the white South Africans turn over the stolen resources and acknowledge, so-called South Africa as a colonial settler apartheid state, and that they are not, the only way for white people to be in Africa, an African, is if we're under the leadership of an all-African socialist government of the African working class that is about meeting the needs of African people worldwide, African people controlling their labor and resources. We need to turn that over for the struggle to make that possible, because we will all benefit. So USM needs to build everywhere that white people are, including where the party exists in Africa and all over Africa, including all over the U.S. If you're in Boston, if you're in L.A., if you're in Louisville, if you're in Kansas City, if you're in Minneapolis, wherever you are, Canada, Australia, if you're white, join USM. Uhuru.
Uhuru, Casey. Really appreciate that. And thank you, Virginia, for pointing out. I missed a comment from Nasir earlier, said, ordered Overturning the Culture of Violence from Uhuru Planet. I found it very informative so far. Awesome. Encourage everyone to get that book, Uhuru. And then we also have another comment. Let me see here. Yes, Virginia said the Black Power Blueprint is amazing. Salute Gary Brooks. Uhuru. Wonderful. So we have 4 minutes left of our program, and I just wanted to see, Casey, if you had any other thoughts, comments. I know we've spoken about a lot about the movement, but I just wanted to open it up for you before we go into announcements.
No, I just want to appreciate this great study, and for everyone for tuning in and sharing and learning. And if you are not a member yet, join. And yeah, I'm just really excited about continuing to build. The African People's Socialist Party is the vanguard, and building a new world, and we all got to get involved. Uhuru.
Uhuru, let's do it. So
I'm gonna hop off, but
all right.
Thanks again, Uhuru.
Uhuru, thank you, KC. Uhuru. All right, so our announcements. If you are as excited about the movement as I am, you will be at the Uhuru Solidarity Movement 2020 National Convention themed Reparations Uprising. So let's do this, comrades. Reparations Uprising, April 18th and 19th. That's a Saturday and Sunday in St. Louis, Missouri, at the beautiful Uhuru House there. And it will include a tour of the outdoor space next door, of the community garden, of the One Africa, One Nation marketplace, the stage, and so much else, including the 50-foot flagpole waving the beautiful RBG red, black, and green African flag. So see you there. We have the Eventbrite link there for you to register. It's only $50 for, the $50 includes both days, as well as food, and there'll be panels with Chairman Omali Yeshitela himself, Penny Hess of the African People's Solidarity Committee and author of Overturning the Culture of Violence, Jesse Nevel, our national chair in USM, and lots of panels and workshops, trainings, so you don't want to miss it. Let's build this reparations uprising. And then for more political education, I skipped Reparations Recruitment Week, which I mentioned earlier, March 9th through 15th. Learn more at uhurusolidarity.org/recruit. Recruit for USM wherever you are located. And then for more political education, we have hashtag Omali Taught Me Sunday Studies, which are at 8 a.m. Eastern, and they are on youtube.com/UhuruTV and facebook.com/Omali.Yeshitela. Chairman Omali Yeshitela himself leads these political studies, so you can ask your questions to Chairman Omali Yeshitela himself. Studies on various texts from the Uhuru movement, including Vanguard, the Advanced Attachment of the African Revolution, his newest book. And he expounds on them, talks about what's happening in the world today, answers questions. Really, really important, and encourage everyone to tune into those and take notes like I do. And then we have the Afghan National Women's Organization, ANWO, which was formed by the Afghan People's Socialist Party, I believe, in 2015. So the Afghan National Women's Organization was organized to address the special oppression of Afghan women all over the world, and they're having their national convention coming up, the Black Women's Convention, Sisters United for the Revolution. So we white people are called on to attend in solidarity with Afghan women's liberation, and we can do that March 27th through the 29th. Register at convention.anwouhuru.org. And then join us for our next reparations study group for episode 13. And RSVP at that link. So thank you so much, everyone. We are at 8 p.m. And Uhuru means freedom in Swahili, in case you didn't know that. So, Uhuru.